Coming up on today's show.
However, I started to realize that, I'm spending every day working as hard as I can, and I know I have 1,000 things to improve on here, but do I want to spend my one life improving on those things, or do I want to spend that life doing something else? Are people who go through a painful situation in their life, they then turn around and use their knowledge from that situation to help others go through it. And I think it's one of the most admirable things human beings can do. And the opportunities that I think are out there are what you talked about: kindness, grace, creativity. These things matter. They matter a great deal to me. And while the world does not often reflect these things, that is what I think is most important. We treat mental health as if it's a problem to be solved, but it's not. It is a problem to be managed. It is something that should be received with patience and grace and kindness. And unfortunately, a lot of times in situations wherever people work, those things are not high up.
Hi there, I'm April Paige, breaking down the what, when, where, and how creatives get their inspiration. I'm a big fan of the cursey words, and I've been a creative for 30 plus years in marketing and fine art. This is where creatives unite to break down the facts of creative life. Buckle up, let's get lost in the world of creativity together.
Welcome everyone to Artist Antics with April, where we talk to creatives about creativity. And today I'm very excited to sit down to talk to actor and educational speaker Kevin Crispin. And originally from Monticello, am I saying that right?
Got it.
Illinois, graduated with a BA in theater from Southern Illinois University, formerly a customer support manager, local and global project manager, and senior operations manager and chief staff of a national veterinary company. Inspired to become a speaker after a transformative peer counseling retreat, where I have questions. He draws from live experience with anxiety, OCD, and depression, explores how mental health is experienced and managed in the workplace, creator of the Healing the Risk presentation, uses storytelling and metaphors to promote empathy, grace, and kindness, challenges audiences to ask, can I be that person of grace and kindness, which I am totally on board with, continues to the conversation through public speaking and his podcast called Behind Beautiful Things. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, April. I'm pleased to be here, and it's an honor to be here, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So my first set of questions I really want to talk about, because we talk about this a lot on the show, about transition from corporate to doing your passion. And everybody, thinks it's so scary to jump off the proverbial cliff. So I just wanted to, my first question is, so what made you decide to have that transition? And then, how did you feel? What did you go through in the beginning? Yeah.
Sure. So my last corporate job, I was the chief of staff of a national veterinary company. And it was a very difficult job. It was a job that really poked at my OCD, poked at my anxiety. It was very stressful for me. I learned a lot. I worked with wonderful people. However, I started to realize that, I'm spending every day working as hard as I can, and I know I have 1,000 things to improve on here, but do I want to spend my one life improving on those things, or do I want to spend that life doing something else? I know that sounds highfalutin. I luckily had been saving money for years and years and years, because when I used to be a professional actor, way back when, I would walk around the street with like $58 to my name, and I'd be like, what am I going to do if I get hit by a car?
Right.
I have no insurance, so on and so forth. So I've become pretty good at saving money. So I had a good savings. I also had a partner at the time, and luckily she was able to allow me to be on her health insurance. So that took care of that. The fact that that's a hurdle in America is a whole other stupid conversation. But
yes.
So it was scary. And one of the reasons it was scary, I think, is I took a lot of meaning from my job. It was a lot of my personality, and a lot of not my personality, sorry. A lot of my self-worth came from my job.
Yeah. I call it, when I was going through it, I call it identity, but go ahead. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Identity. That's even better word for it.
Yeah.
I had a job where I worked with all sorts of people. I got to challenge myself every day, and I saw the reactions, often hopefully positive, with people that I worked with. And that made me feel good. And that made me feel like, okay, I have a place here on this planet. Can we curse?
Oh, we're a fan of the cursey words. It's actually right. In the intro.
I just wanted to ask. Okay. So, because I'm about to curse.
Yeah.
I think some people get wrapped up in that. Again, especially in America, it's work, 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 work. And so that's where we put a lot of our self-worth and identity.
Yep.
There's the good old saying of, why am I here? What's my purpose? Blah, blah, blah. My answer to that is somewhat crass. And I say that I'm here because my parents fucked. And that's why I'm here. I don't believe that I'm here for some grand anything. But I do believe I'm here for opportunities, and the opportunities that I think are out there are what you talked about: kindness, grace, creativity. These things matter. They matter a great deal to me. And while the world does not often reflect these things, that is what I think is most important.
Yeah, no, it is. You're just prompting so many things that I don't know which way to go with that. But, I think, and I don't want to get political or, go deep into the why of it all, but, I would love to challenge the leaders of the world to say just that. Why can't what we're putting together for programs be kind and creative and beautiful? Why does it have to be? Why don't we challenge each other to say, what does a beautiful government look like? What does a beautiful healthcare system look like? What does a beautiful corporate America look like? So
Well, I think one of the reasons is pathology. A lot of people who are the leaders of the country, certainly our country, if I may say, have severe personality disorders, and they have severe pathology. I think a lot of it is that, whether right or wrong, whether moral or not moral, I'm not here to judge that. It seems a lot of people think that life is about how much you have and how much you get. And look, I like money. I like having
yeah, no, and I get
like
that. I get where you're going with it. We're capitalists, but
but
it's
that's not
gotten
the focus is, especially now after the recession in 2008, the financial crisis here, well, around the world. The focus is, we got to do more with less, more with less, more with less, which is, of course, having the downstream effect that everybody is very stressed out, and they're having to deal with things every day that come from this whole centralization of, we're doing this, we're making it more efficient. That's not what we're doing. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's great. Wow. I want to go further, but this is about you, not about um, what were the things when you first transitioned that were successful at in launching? What did that look like? Did you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to make a plan, or I'm not going to have a plan, I'm just going to network and talk to the people I know to get this off the ground? What did that look like?
The day after my last day, I had those big, like, kind of like win, lose, or draw pads of paper.
Yeah.
I had those, and I was trying to put those on my wall with things and what they said. And I had something like, be kind, use the fear, it's up to you now. And I put that on my wall. And then I sat by the pool for 2 weeks. Well, no, wait, sorry. Then I got COVID and was very sick. And then I sat by the pool for 2 weeks because I needed a break.
Yep.
And then what I had already been doing, it had been simmering in my mind, the speech about healing the wrist. And so I got to work, and I started writing every day. I love to write. I write. And I don't know if I love to write. And I started just free writing every day. I wrote about 100,000 words, something like that. And from that, I started to extract things on top of my thesis. And my thesis, let me explain to people why it's called Healing the Wrist. If I were to say, walk out of here after this interview and fall, trip, and break my wrist, there's a very simple set of steps that we take here. I would either call an ambulance or have a friend take me to the hospital. They would look at it, x-ray it, say, that's broken. We're going to set it, ow, ow, ow. And then they're going to put a cast on it. 6 to 8 weeks later, or whatever it is, I go back. They take the cast on. They make sure it's healed correctly. And if it is, done, done, done. Moving on to the next problem. In the corporate world, I believe, and a lot of, not even just the corporate world, but my speech focuses on, we treat mental health as if it's a problem to be solved, but it's not. It is a problem to be managed. It is something that should be received with patience and grace and kindness. And unfortunately, a lot of times in situations wherever people work, those things are not high up. Now, where I last worked, they were high up, and that was very instrumental. And one of the reasons I was able to stay there as long as I did. And it taught me about how important it is if somebody comes to you and say, I'm struggling with A, B, and C at work. It's not like, well, do it. Here are your numbers, do better. It's about listening to them and allowing them. And I hate this term, but it's the best term I have for it. Allowing a safe space for them to say, I'm worried that I'm not doing this right, or I'm worried that this project's going to go poorly. Because people have those worries, and yet we all keep them to ourselves, and they consume us. And then it comes out in different ways that is certainly not productive, either for yourself or for whatever company you're working for.
Right. Yeah. And I think people are afraid for many reasons. One, there's a lot of ego, and I know what I'm doing and I don't want to share
Right.
that with anybody. And two is, you are being vulnerable with someone. And I've had it in the past where it was actually used against me when I shared something like that. So,
Can I ask how so, or would you rather not share?
not that particular topic,
Okay.
but yeah,
Sounds good.
I'll tell you after.
Okay. Sounds good.
But yeah, so you have to trust the person, I guess is my point. You have to trust the person that you're talking to, that they will, be considering things for your highest good. And if you don't have that trust factor, then,
Can I give an example that I talk of that? It's in the speech. You said ego a moment ago. I think we've all been in a meeting where somebody, the leader, says, what should we do about X? And you think to yourself, we should do Y. But somebody raises their hand and they say, we should do Y. It's like, yes, good job, Bill. Thank you for that. Now, we all have these fucking chat things, Slack, whatever it may be. People start slacking each other saying, well, fucking Bill, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. This creates a very toxic thing that builds and builds. But the root of it is that I, Kevin, in that moment did not speak up. So I, Kevin, am at risk of something, losing my job, not being seen as valuable as I thought I was. And, in the speech, the main thesis is we have what I call the thought, the anxiety in a world. And what I mean by that is, this is a simple explanation for that, I think. If somebody comes into your office in a corporate setting and says, and it's your boss, hey, Kevin, why don't you come to my office? I need to talk to you. Your brain's going nuts. And you have this thought, you have the feeling of anxiety, that emotion, it overcomes you. Nobody likes that feeling. And so you start to try to think your way out of it, which is impossible. And you create this world. So you go from being asked to go to the office to, I'm going to be packing up a box in 10 minutes in like 4 seconds. And all of a sudden you're in this world. And sometimes it's such great anxiety that you're not realizing, okay, I don't know any of that to be true. I don't know any of that.
Yeah.
And when people get in that world, they get defensive. They get, they're obviously afraid. And so it changes their behavior. So it's something, obviously it happens in the world, but this idea that somebody says something, then all of a sudden 4 seconds later, it's our doom.
Yeah. I call it twitchy. Everybody's twitchy now.
Oh, okay.
Because, you're looking for where the problems are coming from and kind of anxiously anticipating that. And instead of just, addressing it as it comes. And I think that, that talks about our mental chatter. I call it, and I'm not the originator of it. I know people are familiar, that monkey mind, where you're, you can even spiral in those moments of, overthinking. And
absolutely,
I think we all overthink, and we think, well, why did he do that? Or why did she do it that way? Or what did she mean by that? And it's all that stuff that you're talking about. That's almost like, a survival thing when I think of corporate America, because you're like, oh my God, is something happening that I need to know about, and it puts that fear, unfortunately, into everybody and or the group,
And I think, to be fair, I have worked with a number of companies, not just the last one, where that was not the rote response. Was not like, you do something bad, you're in trouble. I've been lucky enough to work at a number of places where you're allowed to fail. I mean, we are, last time I checked, human beings. And I know we think we're hot shit. But we're just creatures with a more developed frontal lobe. So maybe we should just calm down on the whole domination of the earth thing. Whoa, went on a digression there.
Yeah. Well, I've been in positions where they talk about that, about it's okay to fail. But then in reality, that was not the case. So then,
oh, I see.
yeah.
Oh, that's pernicious.
when you're like, okay, I'm going to try this then. And then you do. And it's like, well, why did you do it that way? We just talked about it, So,
Right.
um,
Because then you have to think about that person has somebody above them saying, why is Kevin messing this up? And
right.
often middle management is the hardest place to be,
Oh, yeah,
because you have to balance both of those things.
that's right.
And to do that with uh, uh, empathy and a healthy dose of kindness is difficult when you're also trying to achieve profitability. But it's difficult, maybe, but it's certainly doable. It's very easy to
It's
do.
very doable. I think it's the lack of people wanting to be mentors.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that, it's been my experience to date that when you have a boss, they expect you to know what you're doing and, follow your responsibilities. And, if you do have questions or room to grow or you're not quite hitting the mark, like instead of talking to you and coaching you, they just give it to somebody else, or say we're not going to do
Exactly.
that anymore, or you know what I mean. Like it's not about developing you as a human, because nobody has time, to your point, that they're trying to make a profit. So nobody has time to worry about, April's development, because we need to make money. And, there's no room for that. So, we need somebody in here that can actually do it. That doesn't, we don't have to hold their hand. So I think that's a missed opportunity for a lot of,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
managers and companies. But so I'm going to skip to your talk and just say, can you briefly, and I know you kind of gone through it, but can you just give us like the overview of what that broken wrist talk covers in general?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So I basically start off by thinking about, and this comes from a good friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist. I start off by thinking about, I start at birth. I say, all right, we're start at birth, like we always do. When you come out, Jesus. When you're born, you're crying. You start crying. That's the only way you know how to express yourself. And what do your parents do, or your mother? Your mother first. They will give you to the mother, and she holds you, and that soothes you. For the rest of our lives, we get into situations in which we need something that we rely on to soothe us. And we often try to keep it a secret, not even a secret, but try to not impede on other people.
Mm.
For example, in my talk, I talk about how when I work, I just constantly chew on pens. It's kind of gross, but it's what I do. And I'm just always chewing on pens. And I like that because it helps me when I'm stressed out for whatever reason, oral fixation,
Yeah.
what have you. And to understand that there are ways that we can cope, and those ways can be kind to ourselves and others, or they cannot be. And, obviously there's gray area, but so I talk about that. And then I talk, the preponderance of it is that the thought, the anxiety, the world, right? And that to me is not only in the corporate space, but everywhere, what happens all day, every day to all of us. It's more severe for some people than others, of course, but people without realizing it, and I'll keep in this corporate space, I talk about people without realizing it go from A to Z so fast that then suddenly their emotional awareness of the situation totally changes. It changes the way that we make decisions. And that's not just for the person who is, doing the task. It's also for the manager. It's like, oh no, Kevin didn't do this. Oh, now I'm going to get in trouble. Oh man, I should come down harder on Kevin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, people, when you walk through a door, people, that saying, oh, you leave your bullshit at the door or whatever. Yeah, well, good luck. Okay. People are fucking people. And sometimes they're just going to have a bad day. And that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
And I think it should be, if that person comes to their manager, it shouldn't be like, oh, like I'm worried about this. Oh, Kevin, great. We have an EAP line. Go call that. Because what that person often, I think, will feel is, oh, okay, you don't give a shit. You're just throwing it over the wall to this faceless
Right.
whatever. And then
That's
nobody
right.
trusts those anyway because they're
Mhm.
afraid that somebody's listening. I think they're
Mhm.
great services, don't get me wrong, but people don't feel heard. And I think if you take the time to sit with people, and I'm not saying every day, and I'm not saying don't stop working, and I'm not saying don't set goals, but I'm saying to allow time in situations to allow that person to express themselves and to hear them and to validate what they're feeling and to help them is managing the situation. So if somebody comes and says, I'm worried about this, I can't, if I'm the manager, I can't fix it. I can manage it, but too often I think we try to fix it.
Yeah.
And I try to talk about what I'm trying to say, and this is where it's really, really bad selling point with I think business types. You need to allow a little more time. But in the corporate world, at least in my experience, the two most important things are number one, money, number two, time. And number two affects number one. And if you give more to number two, you have less of number one. So it's very difficult to put that in. But my argument for that is, I think the most valuable thing that companies or businesses have are FTEs, full-time employees. And if you have a person who's either really struggling, does not feel heard, and does something like I said, goes on Slack and says, oh, this person, blah, 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 and creates a toxicity, or that person quits or whatever, you got to bring in another person. The whole culture of where you are changes. You have to bring in another person, and it takes X amount of hours to train that person up to what that last person did. So that's my argument. It's like, you're going to spend time either way. Why not spend time with the resources that you've already invested? Oh, God, they're people. They're not fucking resources.
Right.
Why not spend time with the people? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And that is very true. If they hire a new person, it's going to take them a while to get them up to speed. So, yeah, no. So, I guess my next question, and we've kind of touched on it already, is, how can leaders create space? And you're talking to that now. How can they create space without overstepping? To your other
What do you
point,
mean by overstepping?
like, you don't want them to become your best friend who you tell everything to about what's going on in your life, all the details, because I don't think that's appropriate with your
Right.
supervisor.
I'm going to give you an example from my experience.
Okay.
I'm an anxious motherfucker. Okay. I have been my whole life. No matter how much Prozac I pour down my throat, still anxious. And as I said earlier, that job that I had was a high pressure, high stress job. I sat in the same office as the CEO, and the CEO would do this for me. I could turn to him and say, I need to go for a walk. And he would get up with me unless something very urgent was going on. And if something was, he said, give me 10 minutes, give me 20 minutes, whatever. He would take a 15, 20-minute walk with me and listen to me. Sometimes he wouldn't give me an answer. He would just listen and allow me to do that. Now, that took nothing. And that didn't mean that we were best buddies. That didn't mean that when I went back inside the office that, oh, now I know I can fuck off and not do anything. What that meant was, oh, wow, they actually care about my well-being and they heard me. So I think it's as simple as saying, hey, if you're struggling with A, come to me and we'll work out a plan for B so that we can help you when that arises.
Yeah, I've had that. And then at one point the manager said, you should probably talk to a counselor. And I was like, okay, well, that just put a wall up, So it
right. And part of that might be because, and I'm not claiming to be able to train anybody in this. I don't know how to do that, but they might not have any sort of training for that. And again, that's kind of like the EAP thing. Go over there. And you're like, oh, now I'm never going to come to you with anything again.
That's right. Because I'm just talking to you about work-related things that I'm having a problem with. And instead of trying to come up with some kind of solution or walk me through how you handled it in the past, you're telling me to go somewhere else. So now I feel like I shouldn't have shared. So, I've had that happen before.
Which, again, can also be an example of a thought anxiety of the world. That person may not have any ill intent. But
right. They just don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah. They don't know how to handle it. Yeah.
And, so much, as we talked about before, so much of our self-worth is in our jobs. And so many people, because of the way the world is, if they lost their job, they're fucked. And just to even think about that, people with children, people, whatever, is terrifying.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot we can add to that, but, I'm curious, what was the moment when mental health stopped being kind of an abstract thing for you and became deeply personal that you were paying attention to and said, hey, I've got to figure this out for myself? Like, what was that moment?
I had my first panic attack when I was 5.
Oh my.
And this is it's so ridiculous. But at the time, it was real awful. I was at my grandparents' house. We were staying there. I think it was just me and my sister. I don't think my parents were there. They were somewhere else. Um, and I was sitting in my grandma's living room, and I had the thought, what if I run away? I did not want to run away. I had no compunction to run away, but I was like, what if I run away? Then I started really marinating that, and I felt like the room was closing in around me. It's like, I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. I'm going to run away. I did not want to run away.
Right.
So I'm not saying at that moment I was like, oh, mental health. But I was like, this feels wrong, or this feels too much of something.
Mm.
Dylan says too much of nothing makes a man ill at ease, but too much of something, same thing. So I knew then that something was up, and I tried to talk to people about it. But the other thing that was going on is my brain was starting to do the racing thoughts and the ruminating, and I could not stop it. And I could not articulate it to people. And so I kind of suffered in silence, or I acted out in a shitty way. And it's because, one, I thought I was the only person in the world who dealt with this. Sure, I guess that's solipsistic, but I just was like, nobody's brain could be like this. This is insane. Nobody talks about it. Aha. But of course, there are many people whose brain is like this, but we just didn't talk about it. And so when I found out when I was a kid, and I don't remember exactly when, that I was not the only person who dealt with these terrible fears, these racing thoughts, it was a seminal moment in my life when I knew I was not alone. And so all of the mental health focused stuff that I've done, whether it be I did a one-man show about my mental health, whether it be my podcast, which Behind Beautiful Things, which is we just released our 174th episode.
Wow.
Whether it be my public speaking, it's all about helping people feel less alone.
That's awesome. So speaking of your podcast, let's go there. So what have been, share whatever you want to, what have been some of your memorable casts there?
I'm going to answer that this way. You and I, before we recorded, you talked about how every episode that you do of your show, you learn something, and it's
That's right. Yep.
Not only do I do an episode, I do a prep call before the episode, because often people will come on and speak about extremely difficult things, extremely.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that those people feel safe. And so first rule of Behind Beautiful Things is the guest chooses 100% of what we talk about. And so when I do the prep call, I have them tell me their story, and I build an outline, and I send it to them for their approval. Now they can say, oh shit, I don't want to talk about that, or oh, I forgot to add this. And they're like, oh, the outline looks good. Once that's done, we lock it into place. That person knows I will not talk to them about anything outside of that outline.
Okay.
The reason I bring that up is I hear the story the first time, and it really, pretty much everyone moves me. It moves me, and it teaches me something. Because what I say on the show is stories are the great healing currency of humankind. The more we hear, the more we heal. And I think if we can tell a story, if I tell a story to you, and maybe somebody's watching this, maybe about my weird 5-year-old I'm going to run away panic attack, they're like, oh, I thought I was the only one who felt that way. That's the first step. And so, I've had people, just incredibly strong people who have dealt with, I've had a number of people on, parents who have lost children, just the most unimaginable grief. And the fact that something I say in a lot of the guests are people who go through a painful situation in their life. They then turn around and use their knowledge from that situation to help others go through it. And I think it's one of the most admirable things human beings can do. And so when I interview people, I'm talking to people like that all the time who are, again, telling me stories, telling me about their lives. And I'm watching their strength in real time. And I'm, and on the show, there's a lot of, when appropriate, there's a lot of joking because I also believe you got to fucking laugh at this shit because the minute I stop laughing, it's a real problem. No,
that's great. I think there's so many things there that, when you're being vulnerable like that and trying to help by sharing your story, it's just so important that, to your point, that knowledge is power. And then once you do find yourself trying to understand what's going on inside of you, that you think, okay, I'm not the only one. There are others that are going through this. And I think the best way is to pay it forward. So, I think the best thing to do, even to understand it more, is to not just talk to other people and, learn and figure out, how to work it for yourself. But also, once you've done that, to, pay it forward and help others. I mean, that's really important. But storytelling is, at the crux of a lot of what we do in business and personal. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think, it's where brands, really get some lift if they have the right authentic, I'm going to say authentic and humanistic and caring story that is moving for, the audience as a person or a business. But so what's one of the mindset shifts you hope listeners would walk away with when they're listening? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I don't want to speak for you.
I end my show every time the same way. Okay. And I'm going to get to that in a second. You were talking about brands and marketing. I'm going to riff on that for 1 second. I think advertising is pernicious and it's really gross. For example,
I agree.
because I don't like my own thoughts. I watch a lot of YouTube when I'm doing shit around the house, and I just want that skip button to come up more than anything. I'm like, I have one life. Get past it. So
Yep.
at the beginning of each show, I do a fake sponsor as a joke. Now my show also has advertising on it because, hey, that's the world unfortunately we live in. Whitman, I contain multitudes, etc. So I end the show with the same thing where I say there is always room for kindness and grace. No matter the situation, there is always room for kindness and grace. Now, does that mean, speaking for myself, I have always adhered to that? Absolutely not. But I think I want people to come away with that understanding and the empathy, because I call it building. When you tell stories, I call it building the big empathy muscle. We are knowing more about each other. This is why I think my favorite thing to do is read. And if you read fiction, one of the great things about fiction is it's like a magic trick. You get to see inside of people's heads, and then you see something in their head, and it either makes you think, oh yeah, I do that too. And man, yeah, I should stop that. Or, oh, this is why person A did this to me, I think. And then you understand their story a little more, and there's not as much friction.
That's right.
So I think it's about understanding that all situations do allow for kindness and grace. And that
can go for anything, really. Like if you're having an argument with a friend, a spouse, a boss, the opportunity is that you would learn and understand each other a little more in that moment and be curious about, what's going on here. Like, talk to me, what's happening? And then you both get the chance to say, well, I feel this way. And then the other person says, well, I feel this way. And then hopefully, through that conversation, there'll be some kind of resolution, or not, you can agree to disagree, or, it'll be like, oh, I didn't realize that. And it's done, you're moving on with your day. So it's really important.
Or maybe, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
Maybe to give it space to breathe. I have struggled so long in my life that if I get in an argument or a disagreement, I want it solved right then. Well, that's just not how the world works. But I still put, too many times I've pushed forward to try to solve it, only making things worse.
Yeah.
So that's another thing is understanding that some people react to things differently than you do. We're all different. And some people may need different things than you. And that does not mean that you're giving up your quote unquote power or a status in the relationship that you're in, whether it be friendship, spouse, etc. It just means that you understand where they're coming from. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, it's important. When I was married, there were a couple times where I said, I need to go for a walk and just before we talk about this, because I need to get the initial enragement off of me so that I can actually come back and have a civil conversation, still with questions and wanting some, real answers. But, like I have to get rid of that rage, because I know myself, like I'll, go into that if I'm mad enough. Like I'm kind, then you tip me over the tipping point of that mountain, and then
Right.
I lose all, access to reality. But so that's a good point. Yeah, that's a way to give people grace. You need to go walk it out. Do you need some time to yourself before we talk about this, so we aren't yelling at each other?
And if I may, if Kevin of the past is listening, me in the past is listening,
yeah.
pay fucking attention. Okay, anyway.
No, that's great. So if you were going to give some tips on how the people listening, they can be a person of grace today, what are some of the things that are examples of ways to give grace besides the one we just talked about?
Sure. So something I say on my show a lot is, and I had this realization at some point, we as humans want answer to be A or B, and it's usually in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And that is uncomfortable, especially for people who are anxious or people who need certainty in order to move forward. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. So
yeah,
I was thinking, I was like, nothing makes sense. There's always a wrong. And then I said, no, there's one thing. Kindness is the only thing that makes sense 100% of the time. Is it executable? I certainly have not executed it 100% of the time. We're humans, we're fallible, but it is an option. So, and you were asking, remind me what you asked me again?
Sorry. Yeah, so I'm just asking, if you were going to give some examples of how people can have some sort of grace in their life this week.
Yes, okay, I got it. Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
What are some ways? No, that's okay. We'll cut that out.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, I can.
We're not.
So when I was a kid, one of the things that I was told was I was selfish, and you know what? They weren't wrong. And we're told all our life, don't be selfish, don't be selfish. Well, I've realized through 728,000 years of therapy that there are two types of selfishness. Okay. There's what I call the Ayn Rand selfishness. I want it all to be my way. Look at my building. I'm going to tear it down because people don't like it. Fuck off, Ayn Rand. Okay. So there's that selfishness that I'm not for. But then there's what I call mental health selfishness, which is starting with yourself and being kind to yourself. So when I say kindness makes sense 100% of the time, it starts with ourselves. And I'm so bad at this, but I try.
Am too.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm an overgiver. So
what do you mean by overgiver?
I'm a recovering overgiver. Like, I always put myself last. I always take on responsibility of other people. When I see that they need to, something needs to be done, I'll be like, oh, I'll do it for you. I overgive, and then I am inherently abandoning and not giving to myself. So this is something I'm learning from the decompression of not being in corporate America. So and just having the space and the time to think about things. And, a point I wanted to make while you're going through your grace points is, it depends where you're at in your life too, because I've been, in a position where I was a national speaker and trainer. I was traveling every other week. I didn't know what city I was in when I woke up.
Right.
It was bad. I was so disconnected from my family, my friends. People thought it was so glamorous. I was like, it's so far from glamour. This is not the life of glamour. And so I would get really upset because I'm like, I don't feel like I'm connected to anyone anymore. And in those moments when you're that stressed out and you come home from a trip and you're with your partner or his kids, you don't have the bandwidth to be graceful and kind and patient in some of those moments because you're so you're dehydrated from yourself having that grace and kindness, so you haven't given it to yourself, so you don't have it to give from your own cup. So that's something that is really important, that I think our society and the way we work and, to your point, business and profit, it doesn't allow for that. It doesn't even take it into consideration that, we would be more productive, happy, healthy people if we had time to, are there people that are going to take advantage of it? Of course, there's always the two extremes. Are there people that will not take advantage of it and use it correctly and really value it and appreciate it? Yes, but you got to figure that out, as a business owner. But I really think that's a spot that's lacking. I could really get into this with you about the whole industrial revolution, and we're all made to sit in our school chairs at 7 in the morning and, go to college, and then from college go to corporations where they are just prepping you and programming you for that same kind of mentality. So I think that we need to think of it differently, and there needs to be a paradigm shift. That's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, John Lennon said, as soon as you're born, they make you feel small by giving
Yeah.
you no time instead of it all. I mean,
Yes.
it's exactly right, and I agree with a lot of that. And I don't necessarily think this is some sort of pernicious thing. I think I've said that word 17,000 times, but I don't think this is a bad thing. Saying, oh, corporation, people in corporations are evil or anything like that. People have their own moral compasses, and I have mine. And I've spent a lot of time getting frustrated and angry at people for their moral compass. What is the point of that?
Yeah.
When I can just be nice to them and say, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
For the most of my life, I thought disagreement is some sort of battle to the death. No,
Yeah.
it's a fucking disagreement. That's all it is.
Right. And I've had to say that a couple of times myself. Well, we just have to agree to disagree, moving on. And they still want to, prove their point. And I just stop them and say, no, this conversation's over. We're going to agree to disagree right now. And I'm not open to that. So
Yeah.
it's got to be respectful at the same time. So, yeah, it's interesting. We live in interesting times, my friend. But
Woo!
so before I go into my quick fire questions, I wanted to ask you about acting. What sparked you to getting into acting? Anything you want to tell us about that? And I'd just love to hear about it. And in your theater in school, I know theater classes are fun where you have to pretend you're an amoeba or whatever. So I'd just love to hear those stories too. Yeah.
Of course. I like being looked at. People are like, why do you want to be an actor? I like being looked at, I guess. When I was 3, I started doing impressions for my family.
Oh, fun.
I was in like my first show when I was 4 at the church. There's this there's this video where all the kids stand up except for one kid who's just staring at a shoe, trying to figure out how to tie it, and that kid was me. And then
like the one playing with the daffodils in the baseball
exactly.
outfield.
When I was a kid, I was like, Kevin, you idiot, blah blah blah. But
yeah.
So I did theater all throughout school and high school. I was very involved in theater. One of my first mentors was the guy who ran the theater. Was an English teacher who did the theater program at my high school. Wonderful man. And then I went to college, and I originally majored in film, and then I got cast in a show there, which turned out to be a turning point in my life. And I briefly was like, I'm going to double major. Well, that was dumb. So I switched my major to theater, and then I did theater for 4 years. I started to work professionally in the summers. And what you just said a moment ago about traveling the country and people are like, oh, that's so glamorous. I say the exact same thing about acting, specifically non-equity, meaning non-union acting, and the type of work that I've been lucky to do. It's not glamorous. It's very difficult. It's very lonely because this country does not take care of their artists, to its great shame.
Yeah.
It's great shame.
Yeah. No, it's true. And that's
walking
where all the creativity is, and where all the where I feel the shifting will happen when the corporations and businesses and people are looking for answers and how to do things differently. I think the creatives are the ones who are going to be like, okay, well, did you think about this? So I think it behooves us all to be more supportive of creatives in general. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Think about, let's go. No, don't apologize. Think about what we talked about. Everyone relies on creativity. Everyone. Okay. Whether it be looking at a nice book, or whether it be watching a commercial that's trying to tell you better drink this alcohol, or, well, I guess there aren't alcohol commercials anymore. Well, no, that there are. You better drink this alcohol or you're never going to have sex again. Right. There's creativity behind those things. It does not go to ends that I agree with, but there is creativity behind those things. And
yeah, even taking a different route to work is creative, so sure. I think that people don't realize they're creative in every day. Like doing something different in your day that you normally do in your household is creative. So if you stack the dishes a different way, or, whatever it is, you mop a different way that day, that's creative because you've thought it through and said, this will be a better way to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And think of like, and I'm probably going to get the species wrong, whether it be a chimpanzee or an orangutan, or I don't know, so I apologize. Think about how celebrated those animals are when they paint something.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And here I
And
am trying to make a living out of
that
it.
is the gift of it. One of the gifts of our lives as humans is that can be an everyday thing.
Mm.
And it should be an everyday thing if that's what you want to do.
Yes. We should foolishly go after our passion. That is my mantra, is that everybody should foolishly go after their passion and the rest will follow. And I don't mean like do something radically stupid and have zero in your account and try to go, get on an airplane or something. I'm just saying, like, you have to make different decisions and replace stability, what you think is stable, because now it's not so stable anymore, right? We're finding that out across the board. And
Huh.
stop thinking of the stable thing and go after what is you're good at, what you're passionate about, what is eventually going to work. If you had enough of time and resources behind you, that's where you should go. And you can do that in little ways. Like, it doesn't even have to be you quit your job tomorrow. You could start every day after work, you eat, and then you start writing, or you start painting, or whatever. It doesn't have to be a big dramatic change, but those little micro changes will eventually get you to be able to do what you want to do. And I
That's a
think,
great point. That's a
yeah.
great point. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like tomorrow people are like, oh man, I got to do better at that. It's not like you're going to wake up tomorrow and have that problem solved. And you have to give yourself grace about that. It's minuscule steps every day.
That's right.
Minuscule. And it does add up. It might not feel
They
like it, but it does.
Yes. I think they, expand upon each other. It's kind of like a rolling snowball. They'll build the momentum eventually, and you just got to keep at it.
Yeah.
And I think where people fail is they just quit because they don't see any return, or they don't see anything, coming from it immediately. And it's a long game. It's always
Or
going to be the long game.
or they quit because they don't believe enough in themselves, or
That
for
too.
whatever reason. And that's not blaming those people. It's just, I think, a reality.
Yeah. Or they have life choices and they don't have the choice to be able to do
Right.
that.
Again, like I said at the beginning
Yeah.
of the show, I
Yeah.
was very lucky that I was able to save money and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like everybody can just go do do do. All right,
Yeah.
bye.
No,
You
same
know.
for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not not wasted on me. I hear you. And definitely, I was in the same position to where I could save enough to be able to do this now. But it's exciting and scary all at the same time, because I don't know if it's going to end up working. I might have to go back, so, but I'm jumping in and giving it my full all so that I can truly say I did try very hard with, everything I had. And before, it was a side hustle. So it wasn't, something I focused on a regular basis. And now I'm giving it all of my attention, all of my focus, all of my marketing knowledge, all of my resources in order to try to push it forward. And, I get breadcrumbs of little incremental, positive things that are happening now. That's because I've been working on it for months and months and months and months and months. It's not something that happens overnight, but
Right.
yeah. So, okay. You ready for your quick fire?
Let's go.
Let's do it. Okay. Morning person or night owl?
So I used to be a morning person, but now the work that I do to supplement, what we're doing now,
Yeah.
I work as a bartender, bar back in bars. So I've become a
Mhm.
night owl. But for 20 some years, I was a morning person, and I loved every second of it.
Okay. Comedy or drama?
Comedy,
Go-to comfort activity when anxiety hits.
reading.
A creative ritual you swear by.
Ooh.
I would say writing for you, maybe.
Writing, or I'm going to say this: making a joke about painful things.
Mm. Yes, there's comedy in a lot of the trauma. One book or story that changed how you see the world.
Infinite Jest.
Mm. If
Yeah,
you
can I
weren't,
say something?
yeah,
And I know it's fire round, and I'm sorry.
it's okay.
For some reason, some years ago, it became annoying or unpopular to even mention that book. I think
Yeah,
all I'll
yeah, it's
say about that book,
controversial.
yeah, all I'll say about
Yeah,
that book is it is the funniest book I've ever read, and it's the saddest book I've ever read, and it taught me so much about kindness. That's all I wanted to say.
awesome. Thank you for that.
Hmm.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing?
You know, writing books, I guess.
One thing that always makes you laugh.
My best friend.
Very good. And last one, creativity is,
The
how would you?
greatest gift.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to get a hold of Kevin, we're going to put all of his information in the description. So you'll be able to go to his website, see his speaking and acting, capabilities and everything he's done. I think your podcast is on there too. So
Yeah.
you can
Behind Beautiful Things. Yep.
find beautiful things. Awesome. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much, April. I really enjoyed it.
If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to nominate yourself or someone you know as our next guest. Thank you for being a part of our creative community. Stay inspired and keep shining bright.